Well, happy Wednesday to everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our midweek study. We are in the book of Daniel, and we're in chapter 1 and picking up with verse 12 today. And this portion here that we're about to study is just something that's very moving to me. Um, and it shows some things that are just incredible. And I hope I can convey a little bit of that feeling. I hope you pick up on some of this as you study it for yourself. But just to recap, to bring us to this point, Daniel and many of the Israelites have been taken into captive into Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar has handpicked some of the cream of the crop, if you will, those that he felt had a were very smart, and we went through some of those qualifications he was looking for, and he is putting them into kind of a refining, teaching, organizing, um, you know, program. They're trying to, it's not the word I'm looking for, but like a reorientation, reprogramming maybe even, to get them into the culture, reculturalizing them. That's a word. And so he is set before them his food, his drink, schooling. They have access to all the best that the king has to offer. And Daniel and his four companions really want nothing to do with this. And so they're making a proposal to the guy who's in charge of them. And what I wanted to show you is there's some interesting words here. So you can see in this parallel version here, it takes this verse, verse 12, and it looks at it in all the numerous English translations. And you see the King James Bible um, listed here might be more familiar with it, so I thought that's where we would start. It says, "Prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink." Well, pulse is the interesting word that stands out here. New King James Version makes somewhat of a change there to modernize it and says, "Please test your servants for 10 days and give us vegetables to eat and water to drink." This is just somewhat interesting that Daniel, and I'm going to go back to the uh, version here that allows us to see the text. Um, and my computer is going kind of slow. Goes back to the point here where Daniel is proposing something that is very, very strange. And pardon me while I type this back in and get back to the text. And we go to the interlinear and we go to the chapter. And so chapter 1, verse 12, as we scroll down here, he is proposing something. He says, "Let there please be a test for your servants for 10 days. Give us some vegetables to eat and some water to drink." So he is proposing this, and this is just very, very interesting. How did Daniel even know to make such a proclamation? How did he uh, where did he feel this from inside? Again, this is giving me indication that God is guiding them, directing them, that there's a spiritual motivation going on within his life that is leading him to make these suggestions. And so we get to this mysterious word about what pulse is, and it is the Hazeroim, and it's number 2235. And I don't know that we're going to gain a lot here, but what's interesting is it comes from the word Zeroa, which is translated as vegetable, but really means to plant. It's something sown. To zara means to plant something. And so this leads us on this little bit of a trail here as to, well, what kind of planting was this? What were they eating? Um, Again, not a lot of information. So what we want to go down this rabbit hole, if you will, here, and that this pulse here is something that's thought of as coming in a pod, and it's used for words or to describe vegetables like beans and peas and chickpeas and lentils that are in pods. And so when you open the pod up, you pull out what's inside, and that is what's being referred to as the pulse. So they're eating beans, the inside of the beans are eating peas, what's inside of the pea pod, and this is what is they're going to be eating. And they're drinking water. And then he makes this proclamation on verse 13. He says, and give us 10 days and check our appearance. Let us be examined and compare us to all the other guys who are, eating very sumptuously on all the things that the king is providing, and let's see how it looks. And so, of course, the guy who's in charge of them consented with them, tested them 10 days, and then, of course, we know how the story goes. At the end of 10 days, it says that their features appeared fatter in flesh, and they appeared to look more healthy than the other young men who, ate all of the king's heavy food, if you will, or food that was, something that was very sought after. And so, again, this just struck me. How in 10 days can you notice an improvement? You see all the things on TV about try this new diet, try this new, you know, supplement or a diet or pill or something like that, and you'll start seeing all of these, results. Here is a 10-day period of time, which is very small. I guess if you are starving yourself to death after 10 days, yes, you're going to notice something. Um, but this is just very interesting. You look at this type of diet, there are people who go on diets, call them Mediterranean diets or vegetarian diets, and they do this to, cleanse their colon, to cleanse their body, to lose weight, numerous different reasons to, improve their lifestyle in some ways, and, all the things that are touted for this. But what you don't usually see is that a person is going to look fatter in their flesh. And so I want to look at this word, bari. It is a word that is translated as fat, but it comes from the word bara, which is used to make or to create. It's used actually in the book of Genesis when God creates. The very first word he uses is to bara. And so I find it interesting that it's related to that. And so maybe the idea there is not so much to um, be fatter in the 21st Midwestern Western culture that we think of, but maybe it's just to improve the appearance, to make it look like it's being added onto, that it being enhanced rather than taken away from. And so as I'm thinking about this and just pondering on this, that this is a miracle. This is really something that I believe God is working in their lives to assist the reason that they chose this diet. Again, they weren't doing it for health reasons or, some fitness guru didn't tell them to pick up this diet. It's something they're doing to honor God. And they're trying to maintain their integrity. They're trying to maintain their dedication to the things of God. They want to eat only food that they feel will draw them closer to God, or I should say, not take them away from God, is such of the things that the king was trying to offer them may have been dedicated most likely to idols. They were foods that, prepared by ways that were not dictated by God's word. What kind of food did they have? How was it prepared? Was the blood let out properly, or was it cooked with blood? I think of my grandmother, a good German cook, and they would make blood sausage and things where they actually used the blood in the cooking, and That's how they cooked. Well, obviously that's violating the kosher um, laws that are in place. And so, Daniel's doing this for all the right reason. The other thing about the appearance of how can God change an outward appearance, there are two places in the Bible where this occurred. One was when Moses was in the mountaintop and he was in the presence of God receiving the Torah commandments came down. It said that his face shone, and they actually put a veil over his face because people couldn't stand to look at it. And then another one is in Acts chapter 6, verse 15. There was a young man, spirit-filled young man named Stephen, where he's got a whole chapter devoted to him and the message that he preaches. And he was, just chosen by God to give this message. And it says that everybody who looked at him saw his face shining like it had been the face of an angel. And so I do believe God can affect the outward appearance when a person is in his will. And so I see this as just such a beautiful guidance for us when we are in situations that are maybe not to our liking, when we're somewhat forced into situations. Will God give us exit stage right? Like will He give us a way of escape, a way that we can come back and counter one that doesn't violate our morals and our principles, but yet allows us to fulfill the task at hand and the situation that maybe we're in that we really have no way out of. Daniel and his friends had no way out of this. They were in it and they had to exist in it, but yet in the midst of it, of what some would say would just be a horrible situation, God was able to move and God was able to help them. And so he gave them the vegetables and the water, and they came away looking great. And so the steward says, "Okay, I'm happy. I'm not going to lose my head over this. The king's not going to be mad. Uh, we're going to keep you on this same thing." And for the next years, 3 years, I believe, that these young men ate this type of cuisine. And it doesn't show anywhere where they complained, saying, "Oh, beans again, peas again, oh, water. Can't I put, some lemonade in it or something? Can I squeeze a lime in it and make it taste better?" We don't see any of that. And I find that, again, somewhat of a contrast to um, when we think of the children of Israel when they're wandering in the wilderness and God gave them manna. And it wasn't long after that that they started complaining, and said, "Oh, do we got to eat this?" And you know how the story went. But here you don't see any complaining whatsoever. This is just God working in them. And then in verse 17, I find it very fascinating here that God was working in their life in such a way that it says that God gave these young men skill and knowledge in literature and wisdom. Um, Again, big words, interesting words. It uses the word Elohim here, talking about more of the side of God contrasted with Yahweh, which of course is the merciful, compassionate side of God, which of course is existing here. But I find interesting that they use the word Elohim versus Yahweh. And Elohim um, lets us think of more of the side of God that works in situations, that does the powerful side of God to deliver, to protect, here to guide. And so this is the area God is working in. He gives them knowledge, and this is the word yada, which is just as we think of it, knowledge. But then here it uses the word of haskel, which is to be prudent, to be skillful. So, there's one thing to have knowledge, there's another thing to have the wisdom and knowing how to use it. And so this sakal is to take this knowledge that God has given them, this understanding, in the mind and in the intelligence. I want to open up this word for knowledge again because it is slightly different than where you see the other ones. The normal word is yada. This is mada, and says it comes from the same root as yada, but it comes at it from a little bit different way. It's knowledge in the mind. It's the reasoning, the intelligence. One of the commentaries even says it's in influencing the makeup of your soul, which gives me the understanding that this is affecting their moral compass, if you will, or trying to find words to describe, the thing that guides you. It's where your seat of all of your morality and your seat of your passion is. It's the thing that what it is about you that someone couldn't pay you enough money to change. It's rooted, it's who you are. This is God working in that part of their life to reinforce um, what they've already demonstrated that they were wanting to be a part of, but God building that, God making it stronger, God fortifying that and giving them the wisdom on how to do it. And in here also it says he gives them the ability of discernment in literature. This word literature is sefer, which is just the word for book. But I think of that again, how wonderful. How many times I've been studying Hebrew now for like 6 years, and I feel like, ah, there are days I can barely remember a word, and I know I've read them over and over, and the vocabulary escapes me, the grammar escapes me. But here I can see where God gave them the ability to retain the knowledge, to excel. He raised their IQ, if you will. And all of us have different abilities to learn and to process and retain. Some are so skilled and so able to retain and to learn with such seeming little effort, and others of us have to go over it over and over and over again and write it out and listen to it and use all of the learning tools to try to reinforce it in our lives. And then finally, it stays with us. Um, how wonderful it must have been for these to have God enhance that. And that it gives me encouragement. If God can do it for them, why possibly might not he do it for me, for all of us, that if we would ask him, increase my understanding, increase my ability to learn, help me to remember the things that I read, and let them impact my life, not just to read your word and forget about it, but to be able to apply it, which is truly the definition of the word Shema, sometimes translated as to hear, but it really means to hear with an outward evidence that it's being acted upon. Same way with believing, we toss that word around a lot in our um, religious areas. Believing can take many different facets, and we find the biblical understanding of when a belief has really happened is when it is allowed to modify our behavior. When what I believe influences the things I do, the things I say, how I conduct myself, that's when a belief moves from head knowledge or just knowledge but into a realm of understanding, of truly being applied. And that's always a challenge as we navigate that. And what does it mean to believe? What does it mean to truly shema and to hear God's word, but allow it to have free reign and its way in our life. And so this was happening in the lives of Daniel and these other young men. And it says here that in this literature they received wisdom. Again, wisdom from God. I just marvel and my heart just wells up saying, oh, how badly I want this, how badly I would love to have this active in my life. And then upon Daniel, he even got an extra boost here. It says that he received understanding. And this word again is understood to discern. course, if you look here, there's many different ways this has been translated. But what it did in Daniel's life was give him the ability to discern visions and dreams. You talk about taking it up a notch here. Daniel got it, and God saw fit to give Daniel this understanding, knowing what would come up later, as we will get to as we keep studying this. But the words used here, hazon and halomot, are about these visions and seeing future events. The term seer comes out of this, someone who has been given this incredible gift of discerning what's going to come in the future and seeing those things that are coming down the road. All of this was given to Daniel, and this is just so cool. You just can't even hardly imagine what it would have been like to be Daniel and to experience this, and what his relationship with God was like, and how it just must have continued to draw him closer onto God as he understands that God is the source of everything that has been given to him up to this point. So with that wonderful note, we're going to close. Again, thank you so much for being a part of this. I pray it's an encouragement to you and look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye-bye.